Okay. Oops. Can you guys still see my screen? Or did it go away?
We still see your screen. It's not in the slideshow view though.
Okay. All right. And we've opened it up to folks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to our very last Ojibwe storytelling of the series this year. It is wonderful that you could join us. We're really glad to have you here. We are doing things a little different tonight. Usually I'm your host and then I split and leave, but this time I'm going to be sticking around. I'm your storyteller. I had to step in and fill in for someone, which I'm happy to do. And it's always exciting to be able to share and tell stories with folks. But while we wait, for those of you who've joined us before, you know the drill. Please put in the chat box where you're coming from tonight. We'd love to hear you, love to hear from you. The way Zoom sets things up is we can't see you and we can't hear you. They automatically quiet all of those things. So this is one way we can hear a little bit from you guys where you're joining from. So the chat box should be at the bottom. It should be, is it still on the left-hand side or did it move to the right-hand side, Kristen? I'm trying to remember, because I think this is an
So
old, yeah.
the chat button is on the bottom.
Okay.
When you click chat, it'll go to one of the sides.
Okay, perfect. So please put in there, just tell us where you're from. I am joining you from Ashland tonight. I'm in my office. I know this looks like lovely Bad River behind me. It actually is lovely Bear Trap Creek behind me, which is on the Bad River Reservation. But I'm in my office tonight, joining you guys here. And where are some of the other folks from? Kristen, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you tonight from New Berlin, Wisconsin in Waukesha County.
Fantastic. How about you, Amy? Oh, you're muted.
As always. I'm down here in Madison. I'm so distracted because I'm looking at all these places, and I think I saw somebody from Lake Nebagaman, and I think I've seen
Yes.
somebody from Lake Nebagaman before. I wonder if it's a new friend or somebody who's come before. Either way, welcome.
Fantastic. I used to go to a summer camp at Lake Nebagaman. Can you guys hear me with headset on? Sometimes it's easier for me to hear. It can get a little noisy. How about you, Sarah? Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from the west side of
I can't
Madison.
hear
So
you. Uh-oh.
the
Can
west
you
side
guys
of
hear Sarah?
Madison?
Maybe it's me. Okay, try again, Sarah.
Oh, I'm coming from the west side of Madison.
Fantastic. Thank you. And who else do we have? We go down my little thing. And what did I lose? There's Janet. Where are you coming from, Janet?
Bonjour, everyone. Hello from Eau Claire. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Great. And the IT account is our friend Luke. And where are you coming from, Luke?
Hi, I'm from the center of Madison.
Perfect. So we got all parts of Madison covered tonight. And we got the west side, the southeast side, and the north side of Wisconsin. This is fantastic. Because I'm in a different role tonight, I can't, well, I guess now I can see where some of you are coming in from. Flambeau, it's great to see there. If any of my pals from high school or grade school, please put in the chat. It would be wonderful to hear a shout out from somebody I know and in real life. Although I do know all of the people joining me tonight, Amy, Kristen, Luke, and they're all fantastic. So, but it's always nice to make new friends. And I'm so glad that you are joining us this evening on this end of January evening, which is very unseasonably warm. At least it is here in northern Wisconsin. I don't know if it is where you are, but it is very warm up here, which is very strange for us. But technically, there's still snow on the ground. We can still tell our stories. We should be okay. So. There we go. So as I mentioned before, maybe when you were logging on, you're automatically muted when you join Zoom. That's just how they have things set up. If you have any questions for me, you can use your Q&A button at any time during the presentation to submit a question, and then hopefully at the end we should have enough time for some questions. Right now we have the chat open for people to put in where they're joining from. If we'll be closing that in a couple of minutes. It will also reopen at the end for goodbyes. So, which is always nice to hear from people coming and going out of the storytelling. So, how are we on time? Are we right? We're right on time. Look at us go. It is 7 o'clock exactly. I've got a PowerPoint. I'm ready to roll. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I can't see a thing. Here we go. Okay, there is me. There's me from several years ago. Liz Arbuckle. I grew up in Bad River. I'm a Bad River tribal member. I grew up here, then I went to Madison for my undergrad, Michigan for my doctorate, worked as a professor for a while, bummed around a few different states. Now I'm back home on the res. I work for the Wisconsin Historical Society. I am also on the Bad River Tribal Council right now, which is a great honor. But the biggest honor and the best part of my life are certainly my daughters. So this whole evening about storytelling is absolutely 100% dedicated to them, for them, by mommy here. So the one shorter one is my daughter Viddy. She's my youngest. Her real name's Olivia, but Bella couldn't pronounce it. That's the older one, so she called her Ovidia, and then it just stuck. And now it went from Ovidia to Viddy. Now we're here with Viddy. And then my older one with the glasses is Bella, and that was when we were on a vacation in Florida. And so Ojibwe people, you know, I raised my girls in our culture. They were raised with stories. They were raised with histories, traditions, you know, as best I could, you know. And now they're off and about. I'm very proud of them. There's Bella. She's all grown up now. She's at a college in California at the University of Redlands, which is a beautiful campus, as you can see. And then she's a senior. And my youngest Viddy is all grown up and she's at Notre Dame. So she's just a brand new freshman. So the reason why I bring this up is because, you know, we've got a lot of stories in our culture, right? And they're not always kid friendly or even PG, or maybe sometimes they're kind of scary. So this first story I'm sharing with you tonight is one that I wrote for them, just to amuse them. The thing I like about my girls is, and this is how I was raised in my family, is to amuse each other, have fun with each other. If you're going for car rides, if you're sitting around the house, tell funny stories, engage. And so this is just kind of how our culture is. This is how our folks are, our people are. And so this is one I kind of crafted for them. It's called Winnebuju and Mayanan and the Wolves. So Winnebuju, as you know, is original man, I guess you could say. He's kind of not really a person, not really a god. He was the first person. Can be often a trickster. He's a complicated character, as so many of our tricksters are. A very complicated person. So, but one thing we know about Winnebuju is he's often depicted as greedy or selfish or lazy, or he's kind of an original narcissist in some ways, right? It's about him. And if it isn't about him, he's really not that interested. So Winnebuju was going around and he went down to play with his nephew, Mayangan, his nephew, the wolf. And he called them all and he says, "Hey guys, let's get started. Let's have some fun. I want to hang out with you guys. You guys are my best hunters. You guys are some of my best friends. I love you, my nephew." So see, Winnebuju could be a good guy. He had redeeming qualities, right? And they're like, "Okay, that sounds great. We do love to hang out with you. You can be a fun guy." So they did. So off they went with on their little adventures. Something here. And they went hunting. So as you can see, these guys are treeing something. and they were very successful, and they were having a nice time, and everything was good in Winnebuju's world, right? So then they go back to rest, and oh, now everybody's happy, and we're just horsing around and having a good time. And pretty soon they hear something in the woods, and they're like, what's happening? What's going on? And so they look, it's a little girl. They're like, what is happening right now? What is she doing here? That is not a wolf. What is happening? And she said, hey, you guys look like you're having like a lot of super fun. And I also like to have fun. And I was thinking we could have fun together. And Winnebuju says, okay, little lady, stop right here. Nope, turn yourself around. These are my boys. These are my homies. We don't have time for you. We don't want nothing to do with you. You go back to your people. And she says, well, I'm from a big family, and I'm the youngest, and I just get in the way, and everybody does important work, and there's nothing I can really do yet because I'm little. And they just say, go play. Play is your job. Play is your job. So you guys look like you know how to play. So let's play. And he says, no. And she goes, okay, well, can I watch? I'll be really quiet. I'll just sit on this rock and I'll just watch, and I'll mind my own beeswax. And he says, okay. And the wolves say, yeah, okay, yeah, you can watch. That's fine. So they go about, and they're back to their playing, and they're goofing, and they're having fun, and they're hunting, and they're successful, and there's some failures, but little girl, she's watching all this, right? And she starts playing with her little basket, and she collects things in her baskets, little toys and things she's making for herself. And she makes, out of an old wrecked basket, she kind of makes a little ball for it. And she's thinking, oh, I wish I could throw this for these guys. I bet they'd really like it. But she doesn't. She just minds her. She promised she'd mind her business. And then she's got her little dolly. She's talking to her dolly, and everything's going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, she had the audience. The wolves started watching her, and they're like, what is she doing? What is she doing now? I can't look away. This is really, really interesting. So they started to watch her. And of course, you know what Winnebuju did, right, guys? You know, he got jealous. He got upset. He got frustrated, and he wanted to put a stop to this right away. He's like, this can't go on. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? She's kind of, I don't know. She seems like a nice little girl. Winnebuju says, okay, I tell you what, we'll make next litter. I'll give her her own pup. Okay. And we'll kind of make it a really nice little pup for her. And they say, okay. And she said, and then she can get out of here. We can go back to our big grown-ups work, right? Our grown-up stuff. And then she and her pup can go do their thing. And he says, okay. So next litter comes along, and here comes Pup, right? So this little pup's born. She looks a little bit different than her brothers, a little bit different. She's got a little different coloring. She's a lot smaller. And they said, what'd you do with a Winnebuju? He's like, well, thought I'd make this one kind of a little girl size. And he says, okay, that sounds good. So little Pup, and she's like, oh, I love my new friend. Oh, miigwech. This is fantastic. So she and little Pup, oh, they had fun. They had games. They ran. She threw that ball for little Pup. They had so much fun all day long, every day. And then every night, little Pup would come home, right? Because that was the rule. Winnebuju says, you got to come home. You can't stay with the human people. So she says, okay. And she loved her brothers, and she loved being with them. And it was a good world. But then she started to have snuggle times with little girl. Little Pup and little girl would give her scritchies on her head. She'd give her rubbies on her belly. And she combed her really nice and took all the burrs out, and she gave her lots of hugs and cuddles. She loved that little Pup. And pretty soon the other wolves are like, hey, I got some burrs. I'd like to cuddle. Cuddling sounds nice. I could take a nappy by your fire. And Winnebuju says, we got to get rid of this. We got to nip this in the bud. So he says, I know what I'll do. We'll start a game, right? We'll develop a real fun game. We're going to play chase. And we're all going to run. We're going to run around all over Lake Superior, all over Gitchagumi. We're going to run and chase each other. We're going to have so much fun. And little girl and little pup can come too. And we're going to have just going to be a great day. And we all get to play together. Oh, the wolves were so happy. They were so excited because they love their little sister. They really like her little friend. And they love having fun themselves. So they're like, this is perfect. We're going to have a super day. So the big wolves go off running, and the little two are kind of trying to keep up, but they're doing their best. But they're not big like those other ones. And so Winnebuju says, it's okay. I'll stick with you guys. We'll let those guys run ahead. And they said, okay. So they get to the river and the big wolves go crashing. They're like, we're going to meet you at the island. So they start swimming. They're going to get to the island. We'll meet you there. But by then it was getting late and the moon started to come out, right? And the little girl and the little pup were like, geez, I don't know if we should go swimming. And Winnebuju says, come on, it's fine. Look at this bright big moon, right? You can see everything. It's like daylight out here. And so they say, okay. So they jump in and they start swimming and they're swimming and they get to that little reflection. You see that reflection on that picture there? They got in there and all of a sudden, poof, they were gone. Pretty soon the wolves on the island are like, what's happening? What happened to our little sister? What happened to our little friend? I don't understand. And Winnebuju laughed. Oh, he laughed because he had thought he had the best trick ever. Little did they know that Winnebuju had enchanted that lake, and he made that reflection be a hole that they were going to sink in and never see again. Oh, and the wolves cried and they were so sad. And then Winnebuju was like, well, I thought you guys, I thought we were kind of sick of them. And they're like, no, that's mean, Winnebuju. I just don't get you sometimes. And so then all of a sudden, so they look up and they say, oh, moon. Oh, this is terrible. We feel so bad. We miss our little sister. We miss her little friend. And the moon says, come here, my brothers, my brother wolves. You guys are good. And Winnebuju played a terrible trick on all of you, on little girl, on little pup, on all you big wolves. He played a terrible trick on you. But don't worry, I rescued them. I saved them for you. And they said, oh, huzzah, this is fantastic news. This is wonderful. We are safe. And our little sisters are going to be safe. So when can we see them? And she said, Moon says, look up, look at me. They're right here. And they're like, what? And if you can look at the moon, Moon says, from now on, when you look up on a full moon, you'll see little girl running. You can see the ball in front of her, right? See if I can do this with this little thing. So here's little girl. Here she's running. And there's her little pup right behind her. And the wolves were so relieved that they were okay. So they're like, oh, well, that's good. At least they're safe. But when are they coming back? And Moon says, well, I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to come back. I don't know. They're having a good time and you guys weren't really nice to them. And so that's why whenever there's a full moon, you can hear those wolves calling because they're calling out to their sister. They're calling out to her little friend and they're, oh, please come home, little sister. Oh, we miss you so much. We're never going to let Winnebuju play these tricks on you again. Oh, sometimes they think they hear her answering back. Sometimes you can hear that answer back. And they think, well, is that other wolves? Is that another pack? Is that some lone star just riding around the woods by himself? Or is it little sister? Can she hear us? And they like to think she can hear them because at least they still get to talk to her. So that's the story of kind of how, well, this is what I did. My girls like dogs and cats. So I invented this one to kind of explain how Animush, dog, came into being, that Winnebuju kind of created this dog off of this wolf and created that for little girl to play with and become a human partner, a human friend, while the wolves still got to be wolves and play with Winnebuju and hunt with Winnebuju. So it's part of that. It's also one of those, oh, how did that get there story? We have a lot of those in our culture, like, well, we're going to do a few tonight, but why does the moon look like that? What do you see in that moon? There's other stories I've heard where people have seen like a girl and a boy with a pail. There's other stories. There's lots of different stories that we hear. So this is a good example that kind of does a lot of things, right? It tells us about Winnebuju. It tells us how to be a nicer person, I guess. How to share your friends, how to I don't know, not be a trickster, not be tricky, don't cheat people. And so that's why I created this story, to tell the story of the dog and a little bit about that picture on the moon, or what we see in the moon. One of the other things about Winnebuju is, we've heard this, and you guys have heard this all January, why we don't tell these stories. We keep them quiet and we tell them in the winter, largely because of that person. We're not supposed to talk about that person. And I know I've shared this a few times with you. There's different reasons for that some say, well, the animals are sleeping, so let's keep them sleeping. Otherwise, it'll be nice and quiet and we can just keep this to ourselves. Others are like, well, we want to tell this while they're sleeping so they don't hear and get distracted. And then one of my old aunties was like, well, you don't want to tell the Winnebuju story because, then the bullfrogs are going to wake up, and then the bullfrogs are going to come and woo you. I'm like, woo me? So so that is another one of the tales, that if we have any of our animals that we wake up or are while they're awake, it can bring some goofy stuff into your life, I guess I should say. So that's a little bit story about that. So the next story I'm going to tell you, I'm calling it Garden Mystery. And this is another one that I adapted kind of for my girls. This is a story. It has a lesson in the end, but I changed it because I personally like mysteries, right? I always love those whodunits. They're a lot of fun. My girls like them too. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we changed this particular story to a whodunit? So it did, right? So anyway, so as it goes, the animals got together and they're like, you know what? We need to make a garden. Let's create a garden. Because we're always just hunting and gathering and foraging, and we just work so hard, and sometimes we can't, but if we pool our resources, we can make a community garden. And they're like, okay, that's new. Let's try it. So they do make this beautiful garden, right? And then all of a sudden stuff starts growing. Great, starts growing. Everybody's happy. They're like, good, we'll have some stuff we can all eat. We'll share in a big feast at the end of harvest season. But then stuff started going missing. Oh, somebody was getting in the garden when they shouldn't have. This is a group effort. This is a community effort. You can't just go help yourself. Just at least sign in on the clipboard. Say you were here when. There's lots of rules to things. We have to be respectful to each other. So Blue Jay came down. Blue Jay thought of himself as kind of a master sleuth, a detective of the bird world. He sees lots of things and he's kind of bossy, right? And so he said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I've got some ideas about who's getting into this garden. And the other animals all gather around. They're like, oh yeah, who? And he's like, well, let me tell you my 4 suspects. So the first one he calls out is old Woodchuck there, right? So Woodchuck's like, what? Why? Why are you picking on me? And Bluebird goes, come on, Woodchuck. You're a garden eater. You know you are. And he's like, okay, I may be generously proportioned, right? But don't be dissing on me for that. That's not fair. That's not nice. I know how to behave. I can take care of myself. I can forage and I can wait my turn. And then he goes, okay, all right. Keep your fur on. Next comes, all right, you little mole. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. I am like 1 ounce. I am like nothing. I cannot make this much trouble in a garden. I mean, there's a lot missing, right? And he's like, okay, all right, you're making good arguments. What about you, raccoon? And raccoon's like, oh, always me. You're always picking on me. You know it's not me. It can't be me. I've got that food washing thing. I mean, you would see clues, right? I mean, you're supposed to be a detective. Do you see water? Do you see me running back and forth through the water with the food and the washing my hands and washing my food? And Blue Jay's like, okay, all right, okay, all right. How about you, Rabbit? I think it might be you. And Rabbit's like, I wouldn't hurt anybody. I am just an adorable, beautiful little fuzzy rabbit. And like, seriously, everybody likes me. I mean, like Woodchuck, I mean, he's okay, right? And like Mole, what? No. And Raccoon, no. I'm everybody's friend. Everybody likes me. It's not going to happen. Blue Jay says, okay. Some Blue Jay says, well, that's not a very good argument just to say you're pretty and likable and funny and all these qualities. That doesn't say anything about whether you're getting in the food, but okay. Well, okay. So then he calls his friend Beaver, and he says, hey, I got an idea. He says, let's lay a trap. And Beaver says, that's messed up, brother. I don't like the word trap. That's cruel. And he's like, no, not that kind of trap. Not that kind of trap. Hear me out. It's going to be more like an entrapment. Like we're going to catch him doing something naughty, right? So it's not going to be like, oh, I'm stuck in a trap and can't get away. It's going to be like, oh, we caught you. We know what you're doing. And Beaver says, okay, whatever. What do you need me for? And he says, well, you're big. You can move things. I need to go down to the river and get these rocks. And Beaver says, why do you need me? Why do you need me for this? And he's like, you move trees all the time. And he says, I move trees. I don't move rocks. He's like, you have worked with rocks. You have worked with mud. I know you are multidimensional. You work with a lot of medium. And he's like, okay, fine. I'll go get your rocks. So Beaver goes down, picks a bunch of, he goes, find the sharp ones. Find the sharpest ones. And he's like, okay. So Beaver goes down, picks up these sharp rocks, loads them on. And he's like, okay, we'll put them on. And Blue Jay's like, well, you got to help me stack them around. We're gonna edge the whole garden. He goes, why don't you do it? He's like, I am a bird. I weigh nothing, right? It's like, okay, so Beaver helps him, puts it all around. And then Blue Jay's like, okay, here comes the tricky part, right? Here comes where we're gonna get him. So what he did is then Blue Jay went in and put pepper on every single sharp rock, every single rock. And then the next morning, and then they all went to bed. Okay. And they didn't even have really a stakeout. You couldn't even say it was a stakeout because their plot, his scheme was so amazing. It was really going to solve itself, right? So then the next morning they wake up and they assemble everybody. They're like, come along, my suspects. We shall go to the drawing room and I shall reveal who did it. And they're like, okay, we are woodland creatures. We do not have a drawing room, but we shall assemble as you wish us to. So they do. They assemble. And then he says, let me look at you. Let me look at you. And now you, Rabbit. Now you, Woodchuck. And he looks up and he goes, ah, yes. He's like, it was Rabbit. Everyone's like, what do you mean? But he's like, what are you talking about? It can't be me. You don't even have anything on me. And he's like, your face gave you away. You didn't have this little slit here on your lip, on your nose before. You got that when you were trying to get at those sharp rocks with your face trying to lick that pepper off, and that pepper made you sneeze, and you hit your face on that rock and you cut your face right open like that. And you've got to wear that forever because you shamed us by lying to us, by stealing from us, and then you couldn't even come clean at the end. And now here you are. And that is how Rabbit got a split lip, or at least my version. As you know, with storytelling, there's as many stories as there are, there's 20 million more storytellers. And so everybody's got their own little way of doing things. But that's kind of the general gist. That's what I was raised with, that particular story. But I just embellished with a little mystery because, you know, spice it up, right? Let's have some fun. So for like a decade, I was a poli-sci professor. So I did a lot of history teaching, a lot of government teaching, a lot of tribal government teachings. So I was kind of digging in my brain thinking about this, that it's always part of me wanting to share a little bit of our history, right? So I've got this part here. We're going to look a little bit about Wisconsin tribes. And I put this slide, the map on the left, which says Wisconsin American Indian Reservation and Trust Lands, excuse me, has been around for like, I don't know, 20 years. It's a great map, right? It shows you where all the different tribal communities are. And there's Bad River way at the top, or kind of like a maroon color, right there in Lake Superior. The map next to it is from the Wisconsin Historical Society collection. This is one I just thought it would be a fun juxtaposition to explain a little bit more about Bad River. So I've got a few maps for us to look at tonight. I strongly encourage you to go to the Wisconsin Historical Society page and start typing in different things you want to learn about the history of. They have millions of things, thousands of pictures and maps and documents and different things. So it's, well, now sounds like I'm going to use a pun because I just told a whole rabbit story, but yes, I do go down the rabbit hole. I do sometimes get lost in my research, but it is lovely fun. So this is Bad River, as you can see. And then it looks like, I don't know, almost looks like a duck head, right? In the little inset. That's actually the tip of Madeline Island because Bad River Reservation land is there as well. So this one, now this is an amazing resource. So my colleague Kristen is going to put in the chat box, I believe, the web page for this map. So this was done a few years ago with one of my mentors, Joe Rose Sr., everyone's mentor, Joe Rose Sr., a fabulous person, Mary Lou Salawater, another amazing elder. They worked with the UW students. They worked with Jesse. They worked with Bad River kids, and they put together this way of thinking about water and looking at water. So I wanted to include this because it's a beautiful piece of work. It's a beautiful example of collaboration, which is always exciting. And if we have any teachers out there, this is a great resource for you, right? To include or to show your kids, or maybe it's something you could do in your classroom. I don't know how elaborate I don't know what kind of resources it takes to make it look this beautiful. I'm sure quite a bit, but it's still something fun. So if you look at, there's words in there and there's things in there. So I thought that would be a fun resource for you. We're going to circle back in a minute. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family history, right? So in this picture, you see John and Eliza Morrison. They're the elders that are sitting down. And this is a picture with her daughter, Eunice, and grandkids. And this one was taken, in 1914. Oh, dear. Let's see. Hold on. Uh-oh. Did you guys just lose everything? I fear you might have.
We see your computer screen, but not the presentation.
Okay,
mode.
Thank you. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Thanks. Well, one of the interesting things about this, because I'm running the PowerPoint, I can't get to my notes, but it's fine. I think I've got it memorized. So this book is called A Little History of My Forest Life. And it was written by Eliza Morrison, who's a great-great-grandma. It was edited by Dr. Victoria Brem. who found this and put this together as a book. Grandma wrote these in letters. And she explains a lot about her life as like half Ojibwe, half Scottish woman. Her mom was Ojibwe, her dad was Scottish. She was born on Madeline Island in 1842. She was and was raised on Madeline Island, right? And her mom, so in 1850, so she was born in 1842. And they lived there on La Pointe, right, in Madeline Island. And her mom got sick in 1850. There's a couple things that happened in 1850. Now, what was really interesting was the things that are going on in the world during this time of Grandma's life. Like I said, I was a professor, so I like to look at things side by side. What's happening here that's affecting what's happening here or not affecting what's happening here? These are all really interesting questions to me. So I did some of that when I was looking at great grandma's life and what was going on in 1842. Well, then in 1850, they all went to an annuity payment in Sandy Lake. All right. That can be accessed and more information here at glyphwick.org. So the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Commission has a lot of great information about that. It was an absolutely horrible tragedy that we're not going to go deeply into, but that happened in 1850. That's the same year her mother got sick. So I'm going to go backwards for a minute. So Eliza had to quit school at like 13 and take care of her sick mother because that's how things were done, right? Back in the day. She had a couple siblings. And she did that, living basically almost very isolated on the island. It wasn't a happening place by then. It was kind of, in this down period. And so then in oh gosh, I forgot about Grandpa. How old were you, Grandpa? Oh. Well, anyway. Oh, she was born in 37. Oh, my niece is probably going crazy on this. She was born in 37. He was born in 42. Oh dear. Oh, huzzah. We have information. So she was born in 37. He was born in 42, which for those of you who know treaties, those are important years for us, right? 1842 was a massive treaty. So go to Glyphwick to learn more. Again, teachers, parents, if anybody's out there and they want to learn more about this, you can't find a better resource. They're just amazing on that. So he was born in 42. She quit school in 1850. She died in 1865 in August. And then and then she goes, now I got to go back to my other map. Oh. So here's where I'm borrowing the kids' map they put together. So she's down on this lower blue arrow. That's kind of where the Bad River Falls is. It's not exact, my arrow. It's doing the best it can. So she's down there and visiting her sister. And somebody says, hey, now her mother had just passed away. She had been taking care of her mother and really spent almost her entire life on Madeline Island with just her mom and her dad and people kind of passing through. It wasn't a lively spot during that time, according to her writings. And she says, yeah, I heard this guy. Remember John Morrison? And she's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, he's back. He's like in Bayfield. He's going to go like hang out with our brother. And Eliza's like, get out of here. And her sister's like, no, I'm kidding you not. He is here. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I got to go find him. So she's like, she gets in the boat and the sister's like, wait, you promised to babysit my daughter. She's like, get in. We're going. So Eliza leaves from the bottom arrow, goes all the way up to Bad River, all the way up the Bad to Odena, the Gittaganing area, the Gardens area, the old Odena, right, as we would know it today. Visits with some people, and she's like, I got to get going. I got things to do, right? This is my moment. This is my time to shine. Grandma's 27 years old at this point. Eliza's 27, and being 27, never been married, in 1850, as my aunties would say, you'd be an old maid, right? Your days are over. So she's like, well, come on. So here she is. She gets in the canoe. She goes up to the Madeline. She goes to Kakagan, which she portages into the Kakagan River, paddles up to this other arrow, which is kind of where LaPointe is. Like, again, my arrows aren't the best. And says, Dad, oh, here's your granddaughter. Yeah, she's all fine. She's fine. But I gotta go to Bayfield. Can I go to Bayfield? Can I borrow the boat, the bigger boat, And he's like, sure, honey. Why? What's going on? I mean, you just got back. And she's like, well, so like there's kind of this guy, right? And I've like never dated anyone because I am here with nobody on this basically deserted island. He's like, all right. He's like, yeah, okay, go say hello, go say hello. She goes, and I'm going to see my brother, and I'm going to see all these things. He's like, okay, go. So Grandma gets in and rows herself. She's still got her niece with her, still got this kid. Kid can't help row. So she rows both of them to Bayfield. And she wanders up Bayfield. She goes to her brother's, oh, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, good. And then John walks in. She's like, oh, hey, what's going on? And he's like, oh, hello, it's very nice to see you again. They met years ago, I guess, a lot younger. He's about 4 years younger than her, I think. Well, I guess you can do the math. Anyway, so she's like, oh yeah, I was just like in town or whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. She's like, so what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm getting ready to go on this massive like trip. I'm gonna go trapping with these 3 other guys, and we're going all the way up to the North Shore of Minnesota. And she's like, what? Like, when? And he's like, oh, we're leaving in like a couple of weeks, like a week or so. And she's like, oh, okay. And he goes, and she's like, oh, well, all right. And he's like, and she goes, well, what do you think of those guys? And he's like, oh yeah, they're nice, but as far as partner goes, I mean, I rather just have one partner than 3. And she's like, okay. And he's like, she's not getting it, right? So then she's like, so, like, what would you do with this one partner? Like, what are you thinking? And he's like, well, and she goes, to go trapping? Like, I think you need more than just one person to go trapping. He's like, no. He's like, no, I was thinking, like, kind of like a wife, like a partner. And she's like, oh, I'm sure. Grandma. Oh, I'm sure there's lots of women around Bayfield. I mean, like, whatever. You can just, there's so many to choose from. She is playing hard to get. I'm like, woman, you just rode yourself, your niece, miles up a river. You paddled, you portaged to the Kakagan, you paddled to the island, you took a boat, and now you're playing hard to get. Oh, my heart. This is at the point of the story where my daughters go, Grandma. She knows how to work it. So then he's like, no, Eliza, I was kind of thinking you, right? I was kind of thinking you. And she's like, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. Like, like she hadn't planned this whole crazy trip. And so then she's like, well, we got to go ask my dad, got to go ask Dad. And so he's like, okay. So he rows back with her to the LaPointe, and he's like, oh yeah, John, you're a nice guy. It's really good to see you. Now, back in the day, what's funny is this Scottish guy had lived there for so long, he really couldn't speak English anymore. So now they're all just talking Ojibwe. And John also can speak Ojibwe, but that's what she said. She's like, you're gonna have to talk Indian to him, because that's what people used to say back in those days. He's like, okay, I can do that. And then he's like, well, I gotta shuck corn in the barn or whatever shed. And John's like, okay, I'll help. So like he went in there and shucked corn with Eliza's dad for like 2 days before he finally got up the courage and asked him to marry him. And of course, obviously, she said yes. So what's interesting is this whole story. And then she's like, yes, I do. And obviously there's urgency, but my mommy just died. So they do have a wedding right away. I mean, like, they were engaged for a week, people, a week. There was no, dress shopping, venue you know, taking care of or installing, none of that nonsense. It was just like, let's get married. And they did. So these are a few pictures from back in those days. So 1852, 1850s, you can see what Madeline or La Pointe looked like. There's the church in 1870 on La Pointe. This is actually a picture of Bad River down here in 1880. So why does this matter? Well, it matters a lot to me because let me show you. When you read the book, I hope you get the book. It's a great book. Thanks, Kristen, for putting the information in the chat box. It's called A Little History of My Forest Life. And she talks about her sons, and she's got so many stories to share, you guys. I wish I could do this all night long. We'd be here till midnight just telling this fascinating life of this person. But this is one of the boys she mentions. His name is Charlie. Well, his real name's Irvin, but whatever. She called him Charlie. And that would be the guy who would become my great grandpa. So she has Charlie along with a bunch of other kids. I don't know why he looks like Valentino. This is a thing of the day. This is early 1900s. So he marries a lady and has some kids. And this is a picture of Charlie. He's the elder gentleman sitting at the top. That's Grandpa Charlie as an older man. And that's his brother Arthur next to him. But anyway, so Charlie goes on to live kind of a prosperous life. He had what came to be known as Morrison's store in Odena. And he gave birth to Grandma Grace. And that's my dad, Jerry, that she's holding. And there's my dad as a little guy. So, and there's my dad who went off to the Korean War in the Navy when he's a young man, who then married my mom and had me eventually, right? So family stories are great. People talk a lot. Every session I've ever done with this, people say, who taught you these stories? And I wish it was like the old days where we could just sit around. And sometimes it is like holidays, or if you got a lot of family coming in, you know, we all sit around and tell stories. But like I told you at the beginning, when I'm with my girls, we just tell stories as we're driving down the road, or, hey, you know, let me just drop some random fact on you. And that's how I was raised. These were a lot of my storytellers. My dad was a great storyteller. My grandpa Jerome, who Grace married, was a fantastic storyteller, right? So it wasn't always so organized, like, let's sit at the table. Grandpa's going to impart wisdom. It was more like, hey, my girl, come on, let's go into town, or like, let's go down, get the stuff out of the boat. And then he'd just tell you a story, right? One thing my dad was very specific about being very like organized, I guess, was when it came to like our burial customs and taking care of the cemetery and taking care of our ancestors who have passed on. So he made sure that we as kids knew where everybody was buried, who was there, what their story was, and to make sure that I put out flowers, or someone in our family puts out flowers every year to the best of our ability to remember these people, because they were important to him, they were important to Grace, they were important to Charlie, they were important to Jerome, they were important to all these people. So that was one activity that I would say was fairly well organized. So yes, I do drag my daughters around and show them where everybody is. And I really hope you do too. I really hope you're sharing your cultural stories, no matter what ethnic group you are. Every culture in the world has stories. And sometimes they very much overlap. Sometimes it's the same animals showing up. Sometimes it's different folks. I hope you're sharing your family stories. I hope you're making each other laugh and enjoying the love you have with each other. I've got a quick story to tell. This is a pretty common story, pretty famous story, I guess. Fisher and the Big Dipper. I mean, it's so famous, like the National Park Service has a map that I'm going to use for this. Like everybody knows this story. So I'll go kind of quick on it, but it was always one of my favorites as a kid because it was just such a little adventure, right? So what happened was, Fisher, it was cold. It was cold all the time. It was never warm on the earth. And so Fisher got in his head, we should go up to Skyland. I bet you it's nice up there. So there was this other world where they thought everything was going to be nice and warm and they weren't going to have to be cold all the time. He's like, but I don't think I can do this myself. I'm going to ask my buddies. So first he approaches Lynx and he says, hey, I'm going on this big mission. We got to go way up this mountain. We're going to punch a hole through through the bottom of the sky, and we're going to let that sunshine in. I got a whole plan. It's all worked out in my head. And Lynx is like, okay, I'm down. That sounds fine. Let's do it. He's like, great. So then he goes and asks Otter. He's like, hey, Otter, you wanna go on this adventure with us? We're going up, we're doing this thing. And Otter's like, yeah, sure. And she's like, look at me, dude. I have like icicles on my whiskers. I am tired of winter all the time. I want some warmth. I need a sunny day, you know? He's like, okay, well, let's get one more pal. So let's go ask one of our big pals. Tough customer. So they go and find Wolverine. And they're like, Wolverine, what are you doing in this green, beautiful, sunny day? And he's like, I'm a positive thinker, man. I know we're going up there. I know we're going to get that sunshine. So I'm already visualizing that we are going to bring warmth. Okay. So in my head, we're already halfway there. And that's half the battle. And Fisher's like, okay, you be you, Wolverine. We love that attitude. We love it. And Otter's like, it's kind of weird, but you know what? I'm down for it. Let's do it. So then they go. And they march and they go all the way around and they finally get way up to the mountain and they get up there and there it is, the sky. But when they get there, there's nothing they can do. So they crawl up and they're like, Wolverine, you're the biggest guy. You got the best attitude. You know, you're feeling it. Do it. Punch it. Let's get through this. And so Wolverine's like, I got you. So he goes up and he's like, boop, 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 boop. And then Otter's like, let me have a go, because Wolverine got a little tired. And so he's like, okay. So Otter is like, push, push. And then Otter's like, whoa. And then Otter slid all the way down the mountain. They're like, bye, Otter. And she's like, I'll see you guys when you get back. And so that's one of the reasons otters like to do slide in the winter, right? And slide, I guess, in the summer. Otters love to play and slide. So that's came from that part of the story. So anyway, Wolverine gets in there and punch, punch, punch. Lynx is just like, I gotta have a job. I need a job. I'm somebody. So he gets a few punches and pretty soon they crack it. They get this beautiful hole that you can see there. And Fisher says, that's it. I'm going in, right? And Wolverine's like, I think it can go. Wolverine, come on, brother. You're not svelte like me. You're not gonna make it. We gotta go. We gotta be fast because, you know, the sky people may not want us up here doing this stuff. He's like, okay. And so Fisher goes in there, and the first thing he does is he sees all these birds locked up in little bags and cages. And he's like, what are these? And they're like, please let us out. This is really not fun. We want to live a free life. And so he's like, okay. So then Fisher goes around and Lynx goes around. And right now, Wolverine, he's just like the lookout, right? He's just like, I'll watch you guys. And they're like, cool. So they're running around and they're freeing all these birds. And pretty soon all these birds just pew down the hole. And that's how the birds came to Earth from Skyland, right? So that's a good part of the story. So that explains that now. Now we know how the birds got here. Okay, that's all good. So then they're getting ready, and then somebody sees them, and some of the people up there were like, oh, they just stole our birds. They just punched a hole. They're going to steal our sunshine next. And he's like, and then Lynx is like, dude, we are totally stealing your sunshine. It is an ice shield down there. We want warmth. And so then they kept ripping and ripping. And then Fisher goes, I got you guys. You keep working on the hole, because the whole time Wolverine, while he's on lookout, is punching in the hole. And he's making it bigger. And Lynx starts helping. And sure enough, pew, 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 it gets bigger and bigger. The sun comes in and things start to warm up. But just as Fisher's like, all right, guys, I'm coming, he starts running and pew, bow and arrow. And they got Fisher by his little tail. And so that's where I said this, where this NPS, National Park Service, I believe, map. This is such a common story. Everyone's got their little one. But that's how Fisher becomes part of the Big Dipper. And his tail, where he got hit with the arrow, is where the little dipper, or the handle part is. And Kristen's going to put that in the map too. So please go and explore and check their story. It's probably a little different than mine. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. And this will be my last story. This is another one I wrote for my girls. It's called the Cleanup Crew Animal Meeting. Okay, so the cleanup crew, as you know, nature's cleanup crew is composed of raccoon, skunk, and turkey vulture. And they do a good job. They clean up garbage that people leave. They clean up, dead animals. They just keep up with everything. So they're having a meeting and they says, "Hey, I hear we got somebody new kind of coming into our business." And they're like, "Oh, that can't be good. We got our own business we got to protect our interests, our resources, right?" So he says, "I'm going to ask my friend Heron. Heron gets around a lot. She likes to fly and see what's going on." And so they called Heron over to their annual cleanup crew meeting they were having, going over their bylaws and whatnot. And they said, "Hey, we're worried about this somebody coming into our territory here. What's the word?" And they're like, "Well," Heron's like, "Well, who is it?" And they're like, "I don't know. He's weird looking though. He's like so weird looking. And the dude doesn't talk. He doesn't like us. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what's going on with this person or this critter," right? Heron's like, "Okay, well, you know what? Let me talk to my cousin. My cousin Crane. Crane's been around a long time, and his family's been around a long time, right? And so maybe me and Crane can figure out what's going on here." And so they says, "Hey, what's up with this new person?" So they says, "Show me him." So the Crane and the Heron and the whole cleanup crew goes over there, and they look down and look who it is. And they're like, "What are you?" Like, "Dude, I don't know what this is. He's a weird looking dude. Like when he gets scared, he just falls over like he's dead. He's kind of stinky when he does that. He can like hang by his tail. It like can move. He's got these hands and he's got like a pouch where his babies live or her babies live." It's a whole weird scene. And then Crane goes, "Oh, I know this one." And he goes and talks to Heron and they says, "Yeah, come on. So they go up and they say, "Excuse me, madam." She's like, "Yes. Are you a marsupial?" And she says, yeah, I am. I am. Why? He's like, "My ancestors told me about you. We've been waiting for you to come back. Welcome home. Welcome home." And she's like, "I don't know what you mean." And so the cleanup crew is like, what do you mean welcome home? We've never seen this lady before." And they're like, "No, marsupials used to live here millions and millions of moons ago, so long ago. Nobody even alive really today that we know was around. But us cranes have been around a while, and we tell our stories because we keep our histories going. And we tell each other, and learn about this family, this animal, this marsupial. And she's a good girl. They're good guys. They're helpful. They can even withstand some snake bites. They're clean. You don't got to be scared. They may look a little weird, but they're not mean. Be nice to them." And so they said, "Oh, okay. And don't worry, there's plenty of stuff to scavenge." So that's when all the animals learned about a species that was extinct on Turtle Island, North America, millions of years ago. That once when there was some shifting of the continents, little marsupial came crawling back up and was back in her little homeland over by the East Coast. Now she's kind of spreading out different parts of Turtle Island. And they were able to welcome her home and say, "Wow, you're pretty cool. That's pretty awesome." And so they said, Crane and Heron said, "Okay, let's do something positive. How do you guys want to, what are we going to do?" And so they got together and they said, "I got an idea. Let's have a club and we'll all make our own stickers." And they said, "What's a sticker?" And they said, "Just roll with it. It doesn't matter." And they said, "Okay." So Turkey Vulture's like, "I'm going to go first." And so here's what he came up with: nature's cleanup crew. It's clear, it's to the point, it's very Turkey Vulture, right? And he kind of looks kind of good because kind of in real life, he's a little funky looking. So, he shouldn't be pointing fingers. But in this sticker that he got to design, he's looking good. And Raccoon goes, "Okay, me next. So Raccoon came up with this sticker. It's called trash can, not trash cannot. See what I did there? See what I did there? And everyone's like, yes, very clever, Raccoon. You did amazing. And Raccoon was so pleased with himself. And then Skunk came up and they're like, okay, Skunk, what did you come up with? And she's like, I got pretty creative. I think you guys are going to like this. It's a scratch and sniff. Get it? Sensational. You scratch it and it smells like skunk. And turkey vulture and heron and crane are like, I love the effort. I really do. But not sure the marketing of that. Not sure that's going to go over. She's like, I don't care. I love it and I'm keeping it. And they're like, you be you, Skunky. She's like, I shall. And they're like, okay, our new best friend. Now that we've joined our cleanup crew club, what sticker did you come up with? And she's like, I need my space. I'm sorry. I do love you guys, but I'm kind of a loner. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry, Opossum. We only meet once a year. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And that's how Opossum got reintroduced back to her woodland friends after millions of years of being away. She got in the sticker club with the cleanup crew. And we're getting close to being out of time. So a few things I just want to wrap up quickly is the Wisconsin Ojibwe Storytelling. We've done this for 3 years. This is our 3rd year. And these are absolutely amazing storytellers. All of them have recordings available on our website, as you can see at the bottom. I think Kristen's going to put it in the chat or the wherever it's going to go. And you can watch those anytime. Of course, we always ask whenever it's a Winnebago story to please keep those just for winter. Teachers, parents, anybody, we just ask that you respect that little part of our culture. And if we're going to get there, just zoom through that or whatever. If you're watching it at a different time of the year, you can still enjoy a lot of our other stories, 100%. So these amazing people, it was pretty intimidating to follow these big shoes. I respect and admire every single one of these people, and I feel blessed that I got to work with them for the last few years. And I am so grateful that we have been able to record their wisdom and share their wisdom and their stories and their humor and their, brilliance for others. And that's how you can get a hold of me. I'm really, really easy to find. liz.arbuckle@wisconsinhistory.org. We do have a few minutes. Do we have any questions? I can't actually see. Hold on. I'm going to have to stop my share. So, has it stopped? I can't see anybody. Okay,
Hey, Liz,
great.
I can read you one of the questions.
Thank you, Kristen.
So we have 2 kind of related questions about researching relatives. The first person says, I'm loving the stories and oral history. Who would be a contact to be able to research family? I'm a member of Bad River, but did not grow up there, so my knowledge base is limited. And then someone asks specifically about finding out where their ancestors' graves may be in the cemetery.
Good questions. Well, we do have an enrollment office, and that's where a lot of our, like she begat him who begat them, kind of this history of the ancestors, like the thing I showed you. Be good to know who your family is here, and then you could get some stories like that. So whoever your family be, even if you've fallen out of touch. I remember years ago, I met a gentleman who was adopted out and really wanted to get back to know his relatives at Bad River. Hadn't been in touch. And when I told the family, they were so excited. They were so excited that one of their long lost cousins was coming home. So don't be afraid to reach out, give it a try. There's always some possible crab apples, but more likely than not, there's going to be people who really want to welcome you home, kind of like Opossum. You've been gone a while. It's good you came home. Let's make a sticker club, right? So that's often and almost always the way our community works. So did I get everything on that, Kristen?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Here's another one. Janice says, is the bullfrog waking early? Out in the woods, snow is very crusted, more like March. Tomorrow is supposed to be 48 up here in Ashland. So she kind of wants your thoughts on that.
Why is Janice interested? Is she interested in the wooing potential of bullfrog? Hey, I'm just kidding. Because look out, girl. I'm already in line for that. I don't know. That's something we've talked about at Bad River with our natural resources. It's something everybody is talking about. Is we're concerned that the trees are waking up too early, the animals may be waking up too early. I don't know enough to answer that question, but it really is something we're all talking about. So we're out of time. Well, I really did have a lovely evening with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to give you some laughs. It was really fun to be able to share these with you. I really took a risk in sharing the stories I've written. The way it's usually done is it's okay to tell stories, but you have to attribute them to whoever shared that story. So I guess that's it. Is there any other question, Kristen? Otherwise, we can sign off.
That's it.
Fantastic. All right, you guys. Well, it was wonderful spending the evening with you, and I hope to see you next year. We're hoping to do a similar program that we've done in the past, maybe branching out to include more tribes. I'm not sure yet. So we've got a lot of more additional stories for you. And what I absolutely love about this, and I'll say it forever, is that it's wonderful to be able to share these amazing community resources, these amazing people, storytellers with all of you. I'm really glad you were able to join us. Thanks. Good night.